my name is Madeline and welcome to my channel Cozy Cottage Chapters, and welcome to what is going to be a reading update, a Victober slash first part of November, what I've been reading kind of chatty little video. I did an update kind of mid-month for Victober and talked about what I had been reading, and I have finished obviously a lot more since then, so I'm really excited to share something I've read recently because I have been reading some really good books, so I'm very excited about that. I do just want to say before getting started, thank you so much for everyone's kind comments and prayers and support. It was really lovely to read all of your comments and just touched me a lot. A little update, I'm doing well, baby is doing very well, he's growing, moving, doing all of the good things, and we are now going to be able to move from once a week appointments to every 2 weeks, which is very exciting. One of the things that they were kind of monitoring me for has seemed to resolve itself, so fingers crossed that kind of stays the case throughout the third trimester, but that is kind of what we expect. So that's really nice. I'm able to drop down to every 2 weeks for that. And then kind of the other seemingly unrelated thing continues to be somewhat vague, and I am going to be going in for a fetal MRI early December. So hopefully that will give us just more information and a little bit more clarity, because right now it just seems like a lot of appointments and like no one's really sure. Otherwise, other than kind of all of the appointments, and it just feels like a never-ending cycle of more news. It feels like just when you've like kind of figured one thing out, oh, there's something else. So I'm really hoping that just the rest of the pregnancy kind of unfolds more or less normally. Otherwise, I'm doing well and feel pretty calm about things overall, and it's been a good lesson and practice in trust and surrender, which is a good thing for me. So anyways, that's not what you're here for. You're here for the books, and I am really excited to talk about the books because my October reading was great. I am so pleased because going into the month I was a little worried that I just wasn't going to be in the headspace for reading, which is totally fine and understandable. But I was just a little bummed because I've been looking forward so much to Victober, kind of like all through the summer when I was feeling not well and just yucky first trimester things. I was holding out hope for fall reading. I was like, come autumn, I'm going to be feeling great. I'm going to have all that second trimester energy boost, and I'm going to be able to read some really great things, and it's Victober and all of that. So I was holding out so much hope for fall, and then kind of when all of this like pregnancy related medical stuff started happening, I was like, no, this is gonna ruin my Victober reading, but it didn't, thankfully. Thankfully I read a lot more than I was anticipating reading, but even better than like the number of books I read is the quality. I read so many good things, and I'm just really pleased with it. So I think the best way to go through everything is I'm going to kind of tell you how I filled in my bingo board. I fulfilled all but one of the prompts, so pretty pleased about that. I wasn't expecting that, and for most of them I only used a book once. I think I only had to double up once, so that was pretty exciting too. I wanted to see kind of how far I could make it before I started doubling up, and that was kind of fun to play with also. I've also started reading. I've also started a little reading journal, which has been a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed just being able to like jot down a couple of thoughts about what I'm reading, because my memory is just completely shot and I'm having an awful time remembering my thoughts. I used to just be able to remember things. I can't now. And I had fun like making my little Victo bingo board and journaling a little bit about what I was reading for Victober. So for the first prompt, which was friendship, I read A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is kind of the introductory book to Sherlock and Watson. We see how they met and their first crime that they solved together, and this was really fun. takes an interesting format in that the first half you're following the crime and kind of figuring out what happened. And then the second half of the book, and then the second half, you go back in time and it's kind of the backstory of the people involved in the crime, and you travel to America. It takes place in Utah, and there's a lot about Mormons, and yeah, it's just kind of an interesting format. I definitely preferred the first half, like the more following the crime, Sherlock figuring things out kind of part of the story. But I was captivated and, you know, interested in all of it. I will say, like, Sherlock doesn't really come across the best, I think, in this story. And I'm looking forward to reading more and kind of seeing more about his character, because I didn't particularly really like him all that much in this first story, but we'll see. I'm excited to continue on, and I'm really, really glad that I have read a little bit of Sherlock now, because that was one of my goals for this Victober. I wanted to at least kind of dip my toes into the world of Sherlock Holmes. Then for the prompt, not a novel, I read The Morland Cottage by Elizabeth Gaskell. This, I would say, is probably more novella. It's a little bit longer than a short story, so like we're barely scooting in that not a novel category. But I absolutely adored this. This is my second work by Elizabeth Gaskell. I've read Wives and Daughters, and it has all of the same things that I love about Wives and Daughters: the atmosphere, the beautiful nature writing, the characters who just feel very real and lovable, and all of those things that I love just condensed into a much shorter book. And I really, really enjoyed this. I was not expecting to feel as engrossed in the story as I was. I just could not put it down. It has kind of a fairy tale like feel to it also. Basically, our main character is Maggie, and she lives with her mother and her brother in this cottage, and her brother is pretty awful. He's kind of the worst and is just thinks very highly of himself and kind of always gets Maggie to go along and do what he wants her to do. And her mom definitely favors the son, and doesn't really appreciate Maggie for how amazing and great she is. There's a romance that develops that I thought was just absolutely beautiful. I loved that so much. And the ending is pretty fast-paced. It's a bit crazy. I won't say too much. I don't want to spoil anything. But it definitely starts off feeling very slow and cozy and atmospheric. And the ending, things definitely pick up and go a little bit wild. So that was kind of fun and surprising. I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely adored it. And it just put me in the mood to read more Elizabeth Gaskell, which hopefully I will get to sooner rather than later. Next up is the prompt dealing with a change in social status or class. And for this, I read The Claverings by Anthony Trollope. I buddy read this with Miriam, and I really, really enjoyed getting to talk with her about this story, because it is definitely something. We're following Harry, our main character, who goes off and has this apprenticeship and falls in love with the man's daughter, Florence. It's their last kid. All of their other kids have like gone off and gotten married, and Florence is the last one left. He falls in love. They've all married the people that the father has for his like apprenticeship, the people he's training, which is pretty funny. Like all of the girls have married these boys that have come into the house. And so obviously Florence is destined to marry Harry. They get engaged, and Harry wants to get married kind of quickly. He doesn't care that he doesn't really have a lot of money yet, that he is yet to like really prove himself in the world. He wants to get married, but Florence says like, we should hold off, we should wait a little bit. It'll be better for you to kind of go off and, you know, start your career, and then we can get married. And so he kind of reluctantly agrees and goes off to London. Meanwhile, kind of all of this has been going on, but Harry was jilted by his first love, who decided to run off and marry for money, and he's still kind of nursing those wounds, even though he says he's over it and ready to move on. But she is widowed and she's back in London. He rekindles his friendship, but maybe he hasn't really let go of his feelings yet. And so a complicated love triangle emerges. And I found Harry to be so unlikable in this book. There was nothing redeeming about him for me. He just was constantly annoying. Not only in kind of how he was dealing with this love triangle situation, but also in his personal life. Like, he just kind of felt like the character who thinks he's very amazing, but really is not. And he just kind of expected everything to work out for him and to be the best and be super successful. And he didn't really try very hard or, you know, put in much work for it. So I just found him to be so unlikable. And without kind of giving too much away, I just did not think he deserved the ending that he got. Things worked out way too well for him, in my opinion. And yeah, I really disliked Harry's character. There is some change in social class status. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to give anything away, but this book definitely fulfills that prompt. For the Empire spotting prompt, this, you don't really have to choose a particular book for. You could just incorporate this throughout your reading and kind of look for signs of the British Empire. But I knew when I was reading this book, I was like, oh, this will be perfect for Empire spotting. And I had a lot of fun kind of paying more attention to all of the signs and little details of the British Empire. And that was in Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This book was so delightful. I am so glad I finally can say that I love Jane Eyre. Because when I read this the first time as a teenager in school as required reading, I did not love it. But I think that's just, you know, sometimes you pick up a book and it's not the right time, or especially in the case of required school reading, it's not enjoyable to read when you're kind of being forced to read certain things. And I'm really glad that I was able to give Jane Eyre another go and really enjoy it this time, because Jane's character is so lovely. She is so determined and just driven. She has such fortitude. I just loved spending time with her. Her outlook on life is so beautiful. Despite all of these terrible circumstances that she's kind of constantly finding herself in, she's able to just really stay strong and stay focused and try to do her best. I love this so much. There's beautiful writing about fall and winter seasons specifically. I really just fell in love with this book, and despite its length, could not put it down. Felt like every page, every word was well used. I cannot say enough good things about this book. I had the best time. In terms of Empire spotting, there's a lot of references to British colonies. We see Jamaica and some of the other, I don't remember what particular like island colonies. There's also just a lot of, you know, references to products and things that were brought in to the British Empire. And I found that really fascinating. I watched Roz's video where she details all of the kinds of things you might want to pay attention to in the reading, and ways, you know, less obvious kinds of ways that the British Empire is featured. And it gave me so many ideas for things that I wasn't thinking about, like clothing materials to foods to all kinds of different products and things. That was really interesting. We have a character in here who is a missionary, so that obviously plays a role as well. And yeah, it's a really good book for Empire spotting, so this fulfilled that prompt. For the underrated woman writer prompt, I read something by Charlotte Mary Yonge. I read The Stokesley Secret. This is a children's novel, and we follow this big family of 7, I think, kids, and their parents are gone. Their mom is sick, she's getting treatment in London, and the governess is taking care of the kids, kind of running things while the parents are gone. And the kids decide that they want to start saving up their money because they want to buy their neighbor, who is kind of having hard times, a pig to help her out financially. And so they concoct this whole plan of how they're going to raise enough money to buy the pig, and kind of the story unfolds from there. We get to see all of the different sibling dynamics at play and how conflict arises amongst siblings and the different kinds of problems that they're facing individually. I loved our governess character. What was her name? Write her name down and I'm totally blanking on it. But anyway, I loved her character. She has such an amazing way of meeting each of these kids kind of in their unique place and doing the best for each kid and being there for them. And I just thought she was such a great character. She's really, really young too. I think she's like 19 years old, so she's like hardly older than some of these kids, but she just has such a great way of relating to them and helping them through their problems. And I loved her character so much. So even though this is a children's book, there is still all of that great Charlotte Mary Yonge faith elements, really kind of on that road of self-improvement and you know, tackling some of their challenges and things. And she just writes about it in such a beautiful and relatable way. I love Charlotte Mary Yonge. I'm really glad to have read another one of her works, and this is really fun. I will say maybe it was just like my headspace, my brain, but I had trouble for a while like figuring out the order of the kids and kind of like placing them all in my mind. Some of the kids you definitely follow more than others, and so it was easier to figure out, you know, those. But there were some that I was like, oh my goodness, where does this kid fall in the line? But you know, I think you can still just kind of go through the story even if that's a little bit unclear, which was the case for me. Next up is the prompt about education, and for that I read The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. I do think I had finished this already in my mid-month kind of wrap-up, so I won't talk too much about it because I think I already shared all of my thoughts about it. But I loved this book so much. It is super atmospheric, super atmospheric, perfect for October, November, and yeah, I just really enjoyed this book. It definitely fulfills the education prompt because Walter, who is one of our main characters, you could say, he is a drawing tutor, an art tutor, and he goes and lives with this family and teaches these two young ladies drawing. So that works for education, and I really enjoyed this. Excited to read more Wilkie Collins. The only prompt I did not get to is the one set in a different era. I was hoping to read Lois the Witch by Elizabeth Gaskell for this, but I just didn't get around to it. There wasn't enough time, and that's all right. Next two prompts, the color wheel, spin a color wheel and choose a cover that matches that color, and fantasy I kind of grouped together. I read the first two stories in the Yellow Fairybook by Andrew Lang, so I got the yellow, so obviously my color was yellow. And I don't have too much to say about this. I was hoping to read more of the fairy stories, but I just, again, didn't get around to it, and I wanted to read a couple. I read two. I read The Cat and the Mouse in Partnership. Yes, that's what it is. The Cat and the Mouse in Partnership, and The Six Swans. I preferred The Six Swans, and it was fun to read that because I think I'm going to try to read a fairy tale retelling of The Six Swans pretty soon. So that was enjoyable. I really enjoyed that one, and I'm excited. I will definitely be dipping back into those fairy stories fairly soon because I just ran out of time in Victober. The last one is Connection to Jane Austen, and this I doubled up with The Stokesley Secret. Charlotte Mary Yonge definitely in her writing has a lot of Austen-esque elements. She writes about families, family life, and she also was born and died in the same region of England, area, I don't know, as Jane Austen. So geographically they share a very similar landscape. Just that. I could have gone a couple different routes, but I ended up doing that for that prompt. Right, that feels like it was a lot. But like I said, my Victober reading was really, really good this year. I read some amazing things, so I'm very pleased about that. See what I've been reading so far in November. It is the 7th, the 8th, something like that. I finished 3 books. I have a number of things in progress. I'm not going to talk about the things in progress because it'll be too hard for me to remember kind of where I left off the next time I film. It'll be easier just to talk about the things that I finished. Little House on the Prairie. I think I technically finished this in October, but we're counting it for November because otherwise all of my books were Victorian for October, and I kind of want to keep it that way. So anyways, this is technically the 3rd book in the Little House series. For some reason, I thought it was the 2nd. It's not a big deal. Like, Farmer Boy, which is the 2nd book, follows Almanzo, and so you're not following the Ingalls family. It's okay. Like, you can read it 2nd or 3rd, it doesn't matter. But anyway, in this book, we're following the Ingalls family who left their house in the big woods. They are moving to the prairie, and they are traveling for quite a bit of time in the beginning in a covered wagon, and we just see what life is like that and the adventures that they get up to. They eventually settle in Wisconsin. I could be wrong about that. And Pa builds a house, and they are just living out there. And again, this was just such a perfect book. It was exactly what I needed. I love the closeness and tightness of the family. I love how they're just going through hard times together and supporting each other and just loving each other, and it's very much the kind of book I need right now. And so I'm really glad to be reading through the Little House series right now. It feels like just the perfect time, exactly what I need. Very comforting. Even though there are hard times, life is not easy, they're going through it together, and that's beautiful. Lovely Christmas scene in this book, which is just so heartwarming, and I really loved. So yeah, that's all I'll say about Little House on the Prairie, but I really, really enjoyed this one. So I've obviously read a pretty substantial amount of Victorian literature this past month, and so I was just in the mood to read something totally different. And I'm kind of in a fantasy / fairy tale retelling mood. I'm just finding that to be really comforting and really easy to get into, which is not typically like my primary genre that I read. So I'm just rolling with it. I'm enjoying it. I read Rune by Victoria McCombs. This and the next book were both recommended from Chantel. She did a clean fantasy book recommendations video, which I will try to remember to link below. And I got a lot of ideas from that video, which was good because I needed ideas, and I really enjoyed this. So this is Viking Norse mythology kind of fantasy story. The main character is Rune, and she is the 2nd eldest sister. Her older sister is beautiful and everyone loves her. She's been kind of marked by the gods, set apart, and so she's just beloved in their Viking community. Rune is less so. She's less beautiful. She has these markings on her that she's always had, and she's just kind of feels a little bit different from everyone else. And the story kind of starts out with Rune's with the boy that Rune is in love with. They've been like meeting secretly, and he's told her that he is going to propose to her. But then lo and behold, he proposes to her older sister. And obviously Rune does not take that very well. She kind of runs away, she curses the gods, and then a god appears to her and kind of tells her that she is this long lost daughter of a god who they have been searching for, and he's going to bring her back to the kingdom of the gods. And I don't want to say much more than that because I feel like that's all you really need to go into the story. Maybe that's more than you need. But I really enjoyed this. The writing was really good, and the story was just kind of kept moving and was super fast paced. I liked Rune's character and this kind of quest that she's on to figure out who she is. Is she a goddess? Is she not? Like, that's kind of the whole question of the story. I will say there's a bit of a Hunger Games element going on towards the latter part of the story that I enjoyed much less. I just am not a big fan of battles to the death, that kind of gory violence. And there were definitely a couple of pages that I just kind of skipped and skimmed because I just wasn't in it for all of the battle scenes and things like that. I much preferred Rune's kind of self-discovery storyline than the battle part. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it maybe 4.5 stars. The only reason it wouldn't have been 5 stars for me was kind of all of the battle stuff. But that's just a personal preference. I'm sure a lot of people really enjoyed kind of that fast-paced part of the story. And then I finished another fantasy, this time a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and that is The Starlit Prince by, I just wrote the last name, I think it's CFE Black, something along those lines. You'll see. Like I said, this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it feels very kind of classic Beauty and the Beast. Our main character is Talia, I believe, and the story starts off with her father's prized racehorse being stolen, and the big race is tomorrow. She needs to find this horse, otherwise her family will be in ruin. And she sets off, she finds the horse dealer who bought and then resold the horse, and strikes up a deal with him that he will provide her father with an even better horse that will certainly win the race because he is Fae and he trains magical horses. So, like, this horse will win. In exchange, she has to marry him. And she agrees to this deal because she will do whatever it takes to save her family. And she marries this man without knowing really anything about him. He is cursed. He turns into a bear at nighttime. Or no, during the day he turns into a bear. He's human at night. And she is trying to kind of figure out what is going on. Who is this man that I married? And he's not very upfront with her in the beginning about things. There's this whole element of her, if she falls in love with him, she will take on the curse. He will be free and be able to live normally, but she will die because she won't be able to carry the curse. It'll completely transform her and kill her. And so he obviously has some selfish reasons for wanting to marry her and doesn't really tell her that at first, and she's kind of trying to figure out what's going on, make the most of this strange marriage that she's found herself in. And yeah, I really enjoyed all of the kind of deeper thoughts about love and sacrifice and what it means to kind of take on someone else's burdens and joys through love. I thought all of that was really well done. It was a fun read. I gave it 4 stars, maybe like more 3.75, but I really enjoyed it. And it's definitely kind of continued my mood for fantasy and fairy tale retellings. I'm reading another fairy tale retelling right now and have a couple things lined up, which I will share more about later. Right, so I do want to kind of share some reading plans and things that I, have going at the moment, because I don't know when my next update will be. Hopefully sooner rather than later, but I feel like these video lengths have just been kind of, I feel like my videos are just, taking more and more time to get to, and that's fine. Obviously, this is just fun and a nice source of, a nice little outlet for me, but I do want to share some things because I don't know when I'll be back. Anyways, so I am participating in Tammy from Believe in Your Shelf is her channel. She puts together these bingo boards every 3 months. Her and her mom kind of come up with the prompts. I think this time it was her mom who did it. And so this one is for November through January. And I will leave linked below her video where she kind of talks about the bingo board and things. But I've already been able to fill in Rune and the Starlit Prince for this bingo board. So I put the Starlit prints for Oh No, which is an accident, fire, disaster, etc. I'm stretching these prompts like just to work with what I'm reading because, you know, I just want the enjoyment of getting to participate and find ways to kind of be creative with that. So I am using a curse as kind of an oh no kind of accident type situation. It doesn't fully fit, but you know, we're working with it. And then for Where'd She Go? A Woman is Lost, Kidnapped, etc. I put Rune for this because Rune is taken to the kingdom of the gods and her family does not know like what happened to her. They think she's lost. They don't know if she's been killed or what's gone on. So it's kind of like she's been kidnapped in some ways. So it's kind of like she's been kidnapped, just sort of like a fantasy magical situation. So anyways, that is that. It is a 3x3 bingo board, so you know, I have 3 months to complete it and I already have 2 books filled in. Some of them are pretty obscure. There's like a cookbook one, which we'll see if I get to that. And then a book recommended by one of the subscribers, so she has a list. We'll see if I read one of those. But anyway, some of the other ones I think hopefully I'll be able to fill in. And I'm enjoying having this kind of to complement my reading and find other ways to kind of fill in books. I think that's it. Like I said, I'm enjoying the book bingo board, keeping things very light, just reading what I want to read, lots of mood reading, and continuing on with the Little House series is definitely a high priority for me. I'll definitely be reading some more fantasy, I think, and I have a couple other physical books that I'd like to get to before the end of the year / end of January. We'll just see kind of what happens. So anyways, if you've made it this far, thank you for hanging out with me, and let me know what you've been reading, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.